Okay. Good evening. This week's parsha is Parshas Nasai. So we will start off with a short part on the parsha. In this week's parsha, after we learn about the different sacrifices that the princes, the Nesiim from each tribe brought, we also learn about a Saita. A Saita is a woman that the husband has a suspicion that she may have been with someone else, having relations with someone else, and he had warned her in front of witnesses. And then there's witnesses that she secluded herself with this other guy. There's no witnesses that she actually did anything, but there's witnesses that she secluded. So the halacha would be that they would go to the Beis Hamikdash or to the Mishkan, and she would have to drink special waters, and that would be a test to see whether it is indeed, whether she in fact transgressed anything or not. And the Gemara says, it's based on the pasuk, it says Kisishta Ishtari, and she's called a Saita. It says, why is it called a Saita? Because to teach us that a person doesn't transgress, Ela im kei nichnas bei ruach shtus. A person only transgresses if a spirit of folly overcame them, then they transgress. But normally, a normal person doesn't transgress. And the fact that we see someone transgressing, it means that's not really them. It was temporarily a spirit of folly came over them, and therefore they transgressed. That's what the Gemara says. And the Gemara says it, we learn it from here, but it says it about all other sins as well. And the Rebbe explains, why do we learn it from a Saita specifically? If we're talking about all sins, we say that the only reason why a person sins is because the spirit of folly overcame them momentarily. But regularly, the person would listen to his good inclination, his Eish, and he wouldn't sin. So we learn it from a Saita because our relationship with Hashem is also like that of a husband and a wife. And that's why Hashem cares about what we do, because we're in a relationship, we're, so to speak, married to God, which is what we had on Shavuos, the marriage between God and his people. But at the same time, we're learning it from a Saita. A Saita is not someone who necessarily had relationships with someone else. There's a suspicion. And what would happen? She would drink the waters. And it actually says it in the verses itself, that if she's innocent, if she didn't actually sin, even though she did something wrong, she was with someone else secluded, she didn't do the actual transgression of having relationship with him, but she was secluded, which is in itself was something she shouldn't do. But nevertheless, after drinking the waters, it says if she had before that children that were weak or not well and so on, she would be, on the contrary, any offspring that she would have would be much better and much healthier than she would have before. In other words, she would have a blessing many times more than she had until now, because she had the waters and it was proven that she didn't actually do something. And that's the same thing with us. When we do a sin, after we get over it, so on the contrary, our connection to Hashem is much more than that. And that's why we learn it from a Saita. And this actually brings us to the vert from Tanya. We explained earlier in previous classes, I think number 14, that there's two in klipa, in the shells or husks. When we talk about impurities, there's two general levels. There's more than that, but there's two. We can split it into two. There's what's called klipas noiga, and then there's called shalish klipas atmeis. Shalish klipas atmeis are things that are completely asur, prohibited. And klipas noiga is things that are not necessarily prohibited, but they're things that could go either way. It could either be used for the good or used for the negative. And we explain why is the word asur. When we say something is asur, or mutter, right? It's permitted, it's mutter, it's asur, means it's prohibited. Where does the word asur come from? We explain the word asur comes from tied. Something is tied up with something. There's a knot. It's asur. Mater asur, and we say someone who unties things that are tied. So mutter means it's untied, and asur means it's tied. What's it tied to? It's tied to the shalish klipas atmeis. It's tied to the spirits of impurity, the three levels of impurities. And that's why it's called asr. Now, when something is tied to the spirit of impurities, tied to klippa, so normally, under normal circumstances, it says it cannot be ever uplifted. It cannot be untied, and it has no elevation. It remains forever asr. It's forever tied to the spirits of impurities. Until Mashiach comes. Well, Mashiach's going to come, so God's going to get rid of impurities of the world. So things won't be any more connected to the impurities. There is, however, one other way, even nowadays, where we can have something that was asr, and we can untie it from the impurities and bring it over to the side of Tisha, to holiness. As we explained, that even in things that are negative, that are prohibited, in truth, there's some spark of holiness in it, because that's what gives it sustenance, that's what makes it exist. And the way to do that, to take it from the impurities and bring it over to holiness, is through tshuva. However, it's not through regular tshuva. It has to be a tshuva of ava, a tshuva that comes from a burning love for God. And somebody who does tshuva, that type of tshuva, is able to transform and take us out of zdainis nasalei kizachiyos. Even his intentional sins can become merit. And the example is given why it has to have to be specifically the tshuva coming from a deep love to God, and not a regular tshuva. A regular tshuva, while the person is forgiven and his soul is cleansed, but there still was some energy that went to impurities, and that energy that went to impurities stays tied to impurities until Mashiach comes. That's on a regular tshuva. But on a deeper tshuva, a tshuva minava, so even something that's tied to impurities becomes connected to holiness. Now, how is that? The example is given between two people that are running to a treasure. They hear there's a treasure, and they're running towards the treasure. So the one who, there's a tzaddik, is a treasure. Why not? They're going to run. He runs with all his might to get this great treasure. But then there's someone else who's not only is running towards the treasure, but he's also running away from danger. They were in a situation, a dangerous situation, a life and death situation, and they're running away from that life and death situation, and they're running towards the treasure. That person is running with even more might, with more energy than this person who's simply running towards the treasure, but not running away from anything negative. So the same thing as the person who's running with all their might, with all their love to Hashem, because they're out of thirst, they're dying from thirst, and they want to go to God. It's the person who's running like that. That's the person that his dainis nasa like izachiyos, that their negative intentional sins can become zachiyos, can become merits, and will bring them to. And nowadays as well, not only that you don't have to wait until Mashiach comes. To say a short halacha, this halacha has to do with Yom Tov, but it has to do with every Shabbos as well. It has to do with lighting Shabbos candles. So when it comes to lighting Shabbos candles, so many times, especially in Yom Tov, but this could be on Shabbos as well, especially if there's somebody else, if there's a guest coming after somebody already lit the candles. There's a bunch of people lighting candles. Some people already lit. Some people want to light. Or it's Yom Tif, that you lit one. You have to light from a pre-existing flame. So the question is, can I light from the actual Shabbos candles? Can I take one of the already lit Shabbos candles and light another candle from that? So there's two questions. First of all, we know the main mitzvah is lighting 2 candles or 1 candle. And then there's the extra candles that people have the custom to light. Can they light one of those candles from the candle that was one of those extra candles from the 2 or the 1 candle that was lit? That's the main mitzvah. And that most poskim hold that you can do that. The question, however, is, can I light a match? In other words, many times I want to take. There's one thing, you're taking a candle and you're putting it into the already lit flame Shabbos candles, and so that you're taking directly something that's going to be used for a mitzvah, because there's other candles for a mitzvah, and the first candle was for a mitzvah. So most poskim say you can do that. You can take the candle itself and light from the other already lit candle. But what you cannot do is you cannot take a match and light it from the pre-existing flame, even though you have, or the flame that you just lit, even though you have in mind to light a candle of a mitzvah. In other words, you're taking the match from one candle and lighting the candle right next to it, and they're both going to be Shabbos candles. But the match is not a match of a mitzvah. The candle is a candle of a mitzvah, but not the match. Therefore, if you want to light from a already lit candle, you have to take the candle and light it directly from the already lit candle for the mitzvah. You cannot use a match to light from the candle to the other candle. So just to recap, we said we learn out from the Saita that a person doesn't do a sin. A person doesn't do a sin unless a spirit of folly overcame them, and we learn it from a Saita because our relationship to Hashem is just like a husband and a wife. And the same thing by the Saita, just like the Saita, she didn't actually necessarily do the sin, and when she drinks the waters and she's cleansed, and it comes out that she didn't actually sin, even though she did something maybe not up to 100%. She secluded herself with this guy, but she didn't actually sin. Afterwards, any children afterwards are much healthier than before. And the same thing, us, after a sin, when we do tshuva, our connection is much greater than it was before. Then we explained from Tanya, which is sort of flowing the same idea, that we said there's shalosh klipas hatmeis and klipas neigan. Shalosh klipas hatmeis, we said, is usr, are things that are prohibited. We say, why is it usr? Because it's tied. It's always tied to the spirit, to the impurities. And it's going to be in impurities until Mashiach comes. But we said, nevertheless, there's a way for it to be redeemed, even nowadays through tshuva, but it has to be a tshuva of ava, not a regular tshuva. Regular tshuva cleanses the person, but the energy that went to impurities still stays connected to impurities, even after the person is fine. He didn't sin, his sins are cleansed, he won't be punished, and so on. But whatever he did will still be impurities. The way to transform it, that even intentional sins become merit, that's doing a tshuva of ava through love, which is like the person, not only he's running towards a treasure, but he's running away from danger towards a treasure. He's running away from death towards a treasure, which is a lot more than the person who's the tzaddik who's just running towards a treasure. And that person, we can take out the negative and actually transform it into a positive. And then we said the halacha that if we're lighting Shabbos candles, while we may light one Shabbos candle from a already lit Shabbos candle, but that has to be one candle to the other candle. You cannot use a match, light it from the already lit candle, even though you're going to take it and light the other candle. Both of them are for a mitzvah, since the match itself is not a mitzvah. Only the candle is. So you're sort of going, and you go up in holiness. You can't go down and light something that's not holy from the Shabbos candles. So the only way to light from already lit Shabbos candles, not through a match, is you have to take the candle and bring it towards the other already lit candle and then put it back. And that's how you can light the Shabbos candle from already lit Shabbos candle or Yom Tov candle. Have a good night.